Oh, Mike, man. What's up? What's up, man? I was like, hey, Janelle, welcome to the show. What's up?
Good morning.
Yeah, man, I was getting into my groove on, man. I was having a good time. Hey, Janelle, so how's it going? You're down there in Indiana. So is Indiana, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So how's the weather and everything?
It's been super hot this week. We went from like winter to summer overnight. There wasn't much spring happening. So it was almost 90 yesterday. And I'm going to try not to complain, but it's hot.
Hey, that's solid weather. So, I mean, so now these days, you know, you said that you were in teaching. So how long did you teach, and then what did you transition to out of teaching?
I was a teacher for 14 years, all in the primary grades in elementary school. And then I moved into the curriculum director position at my school district. Did that for 3 years, and it was more of an assistant superintendent role. I kind of like to joke that I did everything the superintendent didn't want to do, which was his entire job. So I just didn't get paid what the superintendent got paid. And then I've been a full-time consultant for the last 7 years.
Hey, don't feel bad. Mike G makes that comment all the time. The people don't pay me what I'm worth.
I feel you.
So I did read your book on leadership at every level. So when I was going through it, you had laid out, you had 5 qualities. I call them pillars because I was in the military, but it's just in the same concept. So the question I have is, how did you get to the point where you wanted to write this book after 14 years in the classroom? And what made you really want to leave the classroom and start to pursue a broader perspective of looking at the educational environment?
So those are both kind of long stories, but I'll try to condense them as much as possible. But I thought I was going to retire from the classroom. I loved teaching. I loved the kids that I got to interact with. And I got my master's in elementary education because I was sure I would never want to do anything else. Until one year I had a new principal, and he was also acting as the interim superintendent at the time. And he came to me one day and said, hey, the school board's going to add 2 positions next year. One is a literacy coordinator and the other is a curriculum director. I really want you to consider applying for those. And I thought, curriculum director, that sounds super boring. I'm never going to apply for that. But literacy coordinator, I love teaching reading and writing. I could still have time in the classroom with kids and still work with my peers and colleagues. So that appealed a lot. And I started doing some research and talking to other literacy coordinators. And I had this binder like this thick of all of the things that I knew about literacy coordinators. And I was super excited. And then he came to me and said, yeah, they decided they only had money for one position, and it's going to be curriculum director. And so I think because I had already started thinking outside of the classroom, that allowed me to go ahead and consider the curriculum director position a bit. And I just replicated my process. I started talking to other small school district curriculum directors that were in our area. I found out it was a lot more than just curriculum. And I kind of got excited about the idea and decided, okay, I'm going to apply. If I get the job, then I'm supposed to get the job. And if not, I'm not. And it's no big deal either way. So applied, interviewed, got that job, and realized when I moved into that position that I was burning out in the classroom and I didn't know it. And I didn't realize until I was all of a sudden more energized and passionate about my role like I hadn't been in years. And so I just didn't even feel it till I moved out, and started also realizing that I could have this impact on students across an entire school district versus just in my classroom. And so that still fed the teacher in me. So I didn't miss the classroom as much as I thought I was going to, because I was still making that impact.
Oh yeah, but you hit it. I didn't mean to cut you off. One thing you touched on was, you said the word burnout, and there's a lot of people talking about that now. And if people get in a job up to 14, and in the military, I think the advantage we have is that you can move every 3 or 4 years after a job. But I think when you're a teacher and you're in one school, Groundhog Day can kick in. But, burnout's is a real deal. And I think after COVID, a lot of people found out when they were at home. I'll let Mike chime in on that. But when people got home, and especially educators and parents found out that, wow, this is what you have to do every day at school, because, they're like, it's on the teacher. So I think there was bad as COVID was, Janelle, I'm going to honestly say, I think there are some good that came out of that bad, and what do you thought, your thoughts on that? And Mike, if you got something bad, drop in, brother.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sorry, Mike, did you want to say something?
Well, no, I was going to ask you when you were going to answer that. Do you do companies and schools as well? Because I see empowering leaders, transforming classrooms, strengthening organizations, and stuff like that. But you can answer the first one because Buzz was first.
I do think they go together. So COVID was, it flipped everything on its head, right? Like it forced some practices to change that we're never going to change because we get too comfortable where we are. We get too set in, this is the way we've always done things. So it forced a bunch of positive changes, even if it was incredibly stressful because of it having to happen overnight, basically. But in any industry, really. So we saw all of these different companies working from home, just like school systems had to be working from home and transitioning to the way kids learn, but also the way people and adults work everywhere. So the problem, I think, now is that we're shifting back to more in person and getting back to normal, so to speak, is we're losing the good parts that COVID brought. So we need to make sure we're not throwing away everything that changed. We need to keep the best practices that kind of came out from that, so that we can keep moving forward in education. And look at all the companies that didn't make their employees come back to work because they found out they're just as effective, if not more so, from home as before. So personally, I'm glad that kids are back in classrooms. I do think school happens better in that situation, but it also gave our kids that do learn better by themselves at home in an isolated environment, it gave them that option too. So I like that it has kind of balanced some access across the board, and we just want to make sure that we're keeping that going.
Yeah, and one thing I saw was a massive struggle right now is that even with me teaching right now is that some kids got comfortable being able to be at home and did not really. So we actually had a problem getting some students want to transition back to the classroom. And it's funny as our society, and I talked to another educator about this a while back, is trying to balance the in-person piece where the kids that kind of want that one-on-one attention, they get it while they're there, while they're in the classroom now. And so they don't feel so removed, because it's funny is to see think about this, that the whole freshman class of 1 year spent their whole freshman year at home. Mm-hmm. And came at school their junior year. And so you touched on a couple things about innovative. So in your book, you wrote some stuff, and one of your elements is innovative. So when you say that, what does that mean to you?
So I actually saw a quote somewhere on Twitter recently, and I'm super sorry that I don't know who said it, but basically, like, innovation is not thinking outside the box. It's like designing a whole new box to start with. And we talk about a lot of things being innovative that aren't really. But in my book, I will admit that I was a little bit more broad with it, because I do think we can innovate on small things to make them better. And I still think that's innovation. But if we get stuck doing things, it kind of echoes what I was just saying about COVID. If we get stuck doing things the way we've always done it, then there isn't that mindset for innovation. And people in your classrooms, in your schools, in your districts, in your offices don't feel free to be able to have that opportunity to think differently or try things differently or innovate on their practices. So that's why I think good leaders are innovative. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they are, but that they're open to innovation in their organization.
Yeah. So, you got something, Mike?
Well, what she just said, open to innovation in the organization is, do you think some companies and some school districts lack that by a whole, or by a lot? Because I think so. That's my opinion. Absolutely. I think they lack that. They like to hold on things and not, waste the money into accelerating the business and the school aspects of things. So I agree with you, though. But a lot of people don't look like that. I wonder why. Do you think the higher ups are more scared because they might overspend, or what's your opinion on that?
It is fear-based, I think, a lot of times, even if leaders wouldn't identify it as being a fear. I'm going to use an example of my superintendent that I did most of his job for back in the day, but I'm going to use him as an example. There was a school district near us that they were doing some really cool stuff with project-based learning. Just, in my opinion, really innovative for the time. It was, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And I wanted to partner with them. I was in contact with one of their people that was leading that at their 7th grade level. We wanted to partner and bring our whole 7th grade student body from both schools together for a day of this project-based learning. And his response was, we're an A district, they're a C district. Why would we want to do anything like them? And so he was so shut down to anything outside of what we did. And let's not get started on how states give letter grades out to school districts, but he even knows that's not a reliable system. And yet he was sticking to that because he was fearful of being linked to something that might not be successful. He didn't look at all the cool stuff that those students were already learning at the other district and how much it could bring to our kids. He just looked at, I don't know anything about PBL. I'm not in control of this situation, so I'm not going to let it happen. And I think that carries over. And so when that's your top of the organization, like a superintendent, that culture and that mindset trickles down. Even if it's not completely infiltrating everywhere in the organization, it definitely has power over different leaders at different levels. So I'm always happy when I see classroom teachers and especially building level leaders that don't buy into that kind of closed mindset that a superintendent might hold, but it does make it more challenging for them to be innovative in their thinking.
Wow. So when you talk about relationships, so it goes back kind of relationships. And I work in a school district where you just brought up a key point. The system is flawed when you do it with the ratings, because I work at one of the top level schools. And then I look at a school across the way. Maybe they're not socially, economically as strong, but they still have quality education going on. And you try to wonder why you can never balance that out between all the schools in all the area. And so when I was looking at reading your book, and you were talking on relationships and how important they are between the district, between the community, between all the elements that require children to get educated. I will tell you, I think COVID kind of woke up folks, because it was nice for parents to actually have to be home and go through what the teacher goes through. And I'm going to tell elementary, I felt bad for those parents that had elementary level students, because the struggle was real. But but with the high school students, you kind of could balance it out. But as you go on forward and you're consulting, what does your consulting business consist of? What do you kind of do? And kind of Mike's going to pull up your website and stuff. So what do you kind of do with your consulting business to help districts be better teachers or administrators be better leaders?
So I'll say 7 years ago when I started consulting, I was doing it independently, but I was fortunate to get connected with a company called Advanced Learning Partnerships from the beginning. And Amos Fodchuk is their founder and president. And he mentored me through starting my own business. He provided lots of work for me to the point where I was only doing subcontract work for his company because I believed so strongly in what they were doing. So in May of 2020, right when COVID was shutting down schools and I was not sure how I was going to make a living because I did consulting in schools and on site, he offered me a position on his leadership team. So I now work for Advanced Learning Partnerships as a senior partnerships consultant. And we work with school districts across North America. We have presence all over the United States and in Canada. And we are really focused on student-driven learning. So we do a lot of work beyond that. We do strategic visioning and planning. We have people that help set up esports and student help desk and everything about authentic technology integration. But our main focus always comes around student-driven learning. And so that is one thing that COVID has helped us as a company. The business is skyrocketing because all of these school districts had to move away from a teacher lecture mindset into something that was more student driven when that's how learning had to happen. And now that we're back to somewhat normal classroom, we continue to get to work with those teachers and principals and district leaders to help them make sure that they're keeping that student driven learning at the forefront of what's happening in their districts. So most of what we do is job embedded coaching, which is my very favorite kind of professional learning experience. I feel like that's the most transformative. I'm all for like a powerful keynote message, But when you're talking about true change that's sustainable at a organization, you've got to have something that's ongoing. And so that's why I'm a big believer in coaching, because it's not a one and done. It's ongoing. It's in the educator's world. So in the classroom, in the office, in faculty meetings, wherever their level of leadership is in the district. And it's also all centered around a personalized professional growth goal. So I'm going to be more on fire for something that I'm setting myself, right? Instead of a district saying, here's our goal across the board, everybody do something to work towards that. Okay, but if I'm going to truly grow, I need to have my own personal growth goal with that as well.
Yeah, you hit a key point, and that's great, because what I've seen right now is it seems like we need to go back to the 80s a little bit. And everybody can laugh when I say going back to the future, but in the 80s, we had VOTEC built into the schools. We had where the students that didn't want to pursue an academic degree had an option to become, automotive. I think we got, and it drove creativity. I think when the late 90s, when we started pushing this, everybody needs to go to college thing, it actually hurt people that were creative. And, we kind of put them on the side and said, well, if you're not ranking a 4.0, and then here are the scholarships for the state in Florida, if you don't have a 3.8 or 3.5, well, but everybody doesn't attain that GPA. So I think sometimes we leave some very creative and smart people behind. And I look at some of the top people in this country, and they're C students,
right?
And so you touched on the thing about integrity. And that it is probably, me and Mike talk about integrity all the time. The important elements of integrity between the educators and the system. So can you touch on a point of and you put it in your book. So that means it means something, because you're talking about the integrity of a system that we have in place that we got to change over time.
Yeah. And when I was working on the book and trying to really evaluate what I thought were the 5 top qualities or pillars, which I love that word for it, of a leader, and I don't feel like you can have a strong leader, like a true, good, effective leader that doesn't have integrity, because they are modeling that for the entire system. So I've worked for poor leaders and I've worked for outstanding leaders, and the ones that I want to continue working for have that level of integrity. So if they don't, the trust is not there. I'm not going to buy into whatever their goals are, because I don't trust them as a person, and it just carries over throughout the entire organization.
Thank you for clarifying that. Me and Vince play tennis on the same subject matter: leadership, management, everything. Vince, I express, because I'm a working person, it just, but where I was at, it's just the leadership, it's very important. People don't understand that if you're going to be a team player or leadership, you have to be clear, you have to be patient, you have to be more of a balanced communicator, not everybody's going to be on the same plateau as you and stuff like that. So that was a great clarity. I'm going to give you. Thank you. I want to play.
Should we just stop here, Mike, on this high note?
No. It was just amazing that somebody like as you as well has the same mindset. Like, you have to be a little more. I've been reading some of your stuff. Patience and character. It's just it has to blend. It has to. You can't lose your top, and you're a director. You can't lose your top, and you're a manager. You can't lose your top, and you're a CEO. It's just. But I appreciate it. Sorry, I just have my moment.
Well, and I think, like you said, like people of poor character can kind of BS their way to the top, but at some point, the true character is going to come out.
Hey,
you can't hide it forever.
Janelle, you hit a key point, and I tell people this all the time: is and in the military, it's publicized now and then. And then I was a general, so when people get relieved or whatever. So what really I crack up about is when they go, "I can't believe that happened." No. I don't know why you can't believe it, because everybody saw it. Nobody addressed it.
Yes.
And so now that it's happened, now we want to address it. So you talk about, and the key thing is you say cultivate trust. So touch on cultivating trust, because I will tell you there's not in one organization that you can be successful if you don't cultivate some kind of relationship, transparency, and trust.
Absolutely. So transparency in educational organizations is one of the main reasons I wrote the book, because I feel like there's not enough among the levels of leadership. And I also have heard too many teachers say, I'm just a teacher. And that drives me crazy every time, because they are the backbone of the education system. And classroom teachers are very much leaders. And so I wanted to break down those silos between the different levels of leadership and provide that transparency. Like, why do classroom teachers make the decisions they do? Why do building level leaders? Why do district level leaders? And so when you've got that transparency, that's awesome. But you're right, you've got to have the trust in there too. And the reason I put relationships and building those as the first quality is because you can't do anything else if you don't have those relationships built first. It goes back to, people are not going to buy into what you're selling if they don't trust you, and if you haven't taken time to see them as people and build those relationships with them. And I get, the bigger the organization, the harder it is to make those personal connections. But you don't have to have the personal connection with every single person in your organization, but you do have to with the stakeholders that you're directly impacting. So take time to get to know them as people first, and then you'll be able to identify what their strengths are so that you can be that team that Mike mentioned. You've got to have that teamwork in order to really make successful decisions and changes and transformations within it. So the trust has to be there, the relationships have to be there, and you're right, Vince, the transparency as well.
Man, yeah, because Mike's on point, because Mike just he's gone through some things, and just like I have, and we kind of always badger back and forth on talking about leadership qualities and empowering people that you work with. But the thing I've seen a lot of is that you got to trust the people that you hire, and you got to be willing to say, hey, I'm going to give you this. Even with educators in the classroom, I'll give the principal I have right now, and I give Kelly Rocha a shout out. I'm going to give Miss Rocha a shout out. She really tries to trust the people in the classroom to be in charge, to be the leaders in the classroom. And I tell my students every day is that you come to school not for me to teach you as more, to make sure you have the quality of life skills to survive the next level, because high school, I tell them, is a microcosm of your life. And they think the whole world revolves around high school. I'm like, trust me, I know now at 57. So they definitely, the way you've written your book and the way you've touched on the qualities, I think every educator needs to get out and get a copy of this. So if they wanted to get a copy of it, where do they get it at?
Thanks, Vince. They can get it on Amazon, which is probably the easiest. And then my publisher is Solution Tree. So you can directly purchase it from Solution Tree. And the other benefit of Solution Tree is they have all of the reproducibles that are in there. And I have a lot. I think every chapter has something that you can actually use to help create your action plans or reflect or grow as a leader. Those are all for free, ready to download on the Solution Tree website as well. So those are the two easiest ways. I have some copies at my house that I am happy to sign and send to people if you want signed copies. So there's that as well. And you can just contact me through my website, or email actually would be the easiest.
All right, so people can find you on LinkedIn. You're always on Twitter, dropping some content and quotes, trying to make sure everybody stays positive every day. And what about Instagram? Do we have your Instagram?
I don't know if you do, but yes, you do. There we go. Good job, Mike.
Yeah, because it's the big thing is getting in contact and in networking. And the reason we have you on is so that people can hear your content. And now, what do you have on YouTube? What are you dropping some video content for folks? Let me hear, because I think you on your marketing side. This is why I'm gonna go ahead and pick on you in public. You are not doing enough to get that message out there on a regular basis on just doing it like a 30 or 15 minute, or 15 or a 1 minute, whatever, a stench on something on Instagram or TikTok. So I'm push the button. You need to
Thank you. I need that accountability partner, Vince. I am super bad at that. I actually was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. Like, I am a teacher. I am not good at marketing myself. It still feels a little cringy to talk about my work, but if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't be doing it. So I should be more comfortable talking about it. Every once in a while I do videos on LinkedIn. That's like the most place that I ever do on LinkedIn, but I haven't in a long time. I need to be better. I have a YouTube channel that I think I created back when I was in the classroom. I mean, that's how old it is. And there's probably like 6 videos on it. So I definitely need to learn from you too and do better at it.
All right, so we got you. So what we're going to do, and I'll let Mike chime in before we get off here, but what we're going to do is me and Mike will get together. Mike's going to take your book. Mike's going to put this really hot promo together, and then you can just push it out wherever you want. And that's how we roll in our household.
I appreciate it.
Hey, Mike, you got anything, brother?
Man, well, it's a great thing to have you on the show, first of all, and the clarity that you bring on the organizational tip and the learning tip as well. So you guys are teachers. See, I'm more of a corporate person. So it's just, I don't teach. I just learn and try to juice up everything. But it's just great. It's great to know that there's others out there, you and other people we had on the show that are leaders as well. But to clarify that, sometimes the leaders are not really leading. They're just there.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's because sometimes it's, is it me? Because you look at your own reflections like, wow, am I the only one that thinks like this? Because you're in the realm, you're in the middle core of everything. So it's like, but it's very good. It's pretty dope. I haven't read the book. I got to though. I'm gonna put some print on. Like, look, buy it. Be a better leader.
Thank you. I will say it's definitely written like all the vignettes, all the examples are completely education based because that's what I know. But one of the first reviews that was posted on Amazon was from a CEO of a healthcare company. So good leadership is good leadership regardless of industry, right? So if you can take that mindset, you'll definitely get something out of the book. You'll just have to be prepared for all of the teaching stories that go with it. But I totally believe in those 5 pillars and those 5 qualities, regardless of what kind of organization you work in.
All right, so I'm going to give you a challenge. Is after reading your book, I need you. I went through it, and I think the one thing that I wish you had kind of touched on was confirmation bias. I wish you had kind of touched on some of the nuances of the Abilene paradox. And so people that don't know what that is, you might have to go look it up. But the Abilene, the road to Abilene, where, everybody realizes there's a problem, but no one speaks up in the room and everybody just goes with the flow. And in education, that is sometimes detrimental. And so I think that you touched on some key points. And so down the road, I'm going to be looking for another book.
Okay, I've got one started, Vince. So that's again, I'm just going to have you check in on me because I write out goals at the beginning of every year. And one of my goals was to start my next book. I actually have a book coming out in July or August that I co-wrote with 2 teachers. But my next solo book was a goal written down in January. It's started, but it hasn't even been proposed to a publisher yet. So, but it's all on driving personal growth. So I even think those points that you wanted to see in this book, I think will come out in the next one because it's all about taking that power yourself and making changes within the organization individually.
Oh, that's cool. Well, you can hold me accountable because I have a date of August 30th that my staff has put on me that I have to have a book written. And so I'm going to start trying to write it tomorrow, but it started on the preface tomorrow on it. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I got August 30th deadline, so I got to get working on mine.
Yeah, you do. That's a close comment here.
I know, I'm terrible. Hey, Janelle, me and Mike really appreciate you coming on the show. Hey guys, if you're out there and you haven't checked it out, get after it. Janelle's got her book out there, Leadership at Every Level. You got to get it and check it out. Check out her website. And hey, she's on Twitter, she's on LinkedIn, and she's rocking. And as me and Mike always say, when you come on Coastal Connection and embrace the power, keep it rolling.
Nice meeting you.